Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another live reading with me, Richard Vobes, on the Bald Explorer channel at 4 o'clock on the 11th of November 2020. Armistice Day? No, wait. I can't. How do you pronounce it? On that day that everybody has a 2-minute silence. Armistice. Anyway, it's going to be one of those days. I can feel it already. Armistice. What is it? Armistice. Anyway, hello to the lovely Julia, to Turbo Stream, to Lee Lawson, to Steve G, to Justine Jones, to John F, to Julia M, to Linda Kane, Edward Moulding, Days of Your Ed Loud, and so. Hopefully Richard's reading will bring us a wee ray of sunshine, says Turbo Stream. Let's hope so. Let us hope so. We are reading Lift Luck on Southern Roads on Armistice Day. There we are. That sounded better. I didn't have to think about it. You know, when you think about a word, the more you think about it, the worse it gets. But when you just say it, don't have to think about it, it's in your head, it works. We're on chapter 15. This is going to continue with Divided Ways, the old, oh my goodness, velocipede. What? That rings a vague bell. Is that some form of bicycle? Velocipede. Strategy of Pitton, Woodcraft, A Tyrant of the Hedgerows, The Bells at Winterslow, A Busy Hour, and a Lunch with a Robin. Armistice. What armistice? I got there. Don't confuse me. So, welcome aboard. If you're new to the channel, thank you very much for tuning in. We are over halfway. We are probably a third now to go of this remarkable book by Tickner Edwards. So there we are. He got it. Thank you very much. I'm a terrible overthinker too. I know this is the snag, isn't it? You just suddenly, and I get this from time to time. I look at a word and then somebody will say it's like this, and you go, "Oh yeah, of course it is." Why did I struggle? Must be the age. Anyway, just checking that you can hear me okay. I might just turn that up. And Nat's Nicoleg. Is that bit better? That looks better. Okay, so the bright cold weather seemed... Now, just hang on before we go. He went to bed. Oh, yes, he was at the foot of his stairs with this other bloke who we were debating, weren't we, whether she had left him or he had left her or he'd cast her out or what had happened. By the way, if you're interested in buying one of these lovely mugs, they are available on the baldexplorer.com shop. The bright cold weather seemed now a settled permanent thing. Standing with my host next morning at the gate of the lone cottage on the downs, the same impulse stopped us both on the brink of our leave-taking. Together, we looked out over the plain where the sun was licking up the last of the dewdrops and melting the last violet mists from the hollows, each struck dumb at the sheer beauty of the scene. He was the first to break what must have been a long silence that either of us knew. He struck a match, rather pessimistically. "I hate farewells," he said. "There have been too many in my life, so let's have none of them now. And au revoir is nothing but a mockery. We shall never meet again, you know. You say, and no doubt with perfect sincerity, that you'll come back in the summer, but you will not. With busy men, life is too short to admit of any wilful duplication of experiences. You can afford neither to hark back nor to swerve from the course fate has set for you. From birth to death, the path of each worker in the world must follow a tangent, the straight line that is the nearest way between 2 points. And 2 straight lines can intersect only once, though they stretch from infinity to infinity. No, we shall never meet again." He gave me the friendliest of glances and, turning, went slowly back to his solitary den. For my part, I set off down the road in much the same frame of mind, nor looked back until I was some half-mile away. Thence I could see the little house against its dark backing of pinewood, and the road beyond, until it looped over a distant hill. He had said the truth. There was little likelihood of my returning this way, and he, I knew, would never leave the spot for more than an hour or so. Our strangely variant lives had crossed once. They would never cross again. I pondered his story, there by the lane side, and the more I thought of it, the more doubtful I became. It was a piece of magnificent steadfastness, admirable in itself, and likely to send him to his death as a saint, but apart from its glamour, I could only think of it as one of the worst forms of worldliness. He was doing what he had no right to do, giving up his whole life to the idea that, however fine its Florence, was rooted in nothing deeper than self. A man strong in mind, body, estate, knowledge of human affairs, there was mopping uselessly in one blind corner of the earth, suffering to rust and run. Hang on, I don't understand that sentence. A man strong in mind, body, estate, knowledge of human affairs, there he was, moping uselessly in one little blind corner of the earth, suffering to rust and run to waste, qualities that might have helped thousands. All was sacrificed to an object that, even if triumphantly attained, could be viewed only as a species of failure. For what will it profit a man if he gain the one woman who is the world to him and lose all else? Good question. No doubt, standing there moralising to the rooks and daws, I was myself squandering the most precious and most transient of earthly possessions, opportunity. I might have gone back to him and stalwartly spoken my mind. For all I knew, his one chance of awakening lay in the din that I alone was like to bring about his ears. Yet the man had been chastened cruelly, unjustifiably, as it might well seem. In the depths of his misery he had elected to choose his own Redeemer. False or true, I was in no sort of misgiving that it would purge him into a sanctity and pureness of life that in itself might deserve eternal profit. But if we once begin to justify means by ends, we admit all sorts of unknown factors in the equation of life, rendering a solution already complicated well nigh impossible. I set down these thoughts not because of any profoundness or novelty that they may possess, but because they are the thoughts that actually occurred to me at that moment. That I did not go back, but went forward on my own business, was due, curiously enough, to the act of the very man in whose concern they were exercised. Coming to a shoulder in the road, whence it ran steadily over the steps of hills into the blue distance, I turned again for a last look at my night quarters. I noticed at once a dark object by the lane side in front of the house. Then I saw two men come out to the gate, one of whom approached the object, which I now guessed was to be some sort of tricycle, and came riding towards me. The other man stopped by the gate, shading his eyes. As the tricycle grew nearer, I made out its rider to be a postman. He pulled up as he reached my side. He was a lean, wiry old man, with a face all but hidden in a mass of white hair and whisker. "Are you for petting?" he asked. "'Cause if you are, go in there by Mr. Yonder thought as maybe you'd like to ride." I looked at the machine and understood the joke. I judged it to be between 30 and 40 years old. It was long and narrow. It had a single large spider wheel on one side and two very small wheels on the other. It was a double affair. There was a broad cushioned seat on which two riders could sit back to back, propelling the machine by stamping alternatively on levers which rose and fell underneath. It looked enormously heavy, somewhere between 200 and 300 weight, as near as I could tell. "Do you manage this by yourself?" I asked, doubtfully. The old man chirped like a wren. "Hi, yeah, and have done for these past 25 year. 'Tis wonderful fast, considering when ye lays into ordinarily, and with two, well, I'll just show ye." Pitton was a good 4 miles off, and we did it just under the hour. I'm inclined to rank that hour's work as amongst the hardest in my life. The old postman bent over his pedals, his elbows high in the air, and seemed therefore to get a purchase denied to the back rider. For myself, having one handle to hold by and the seat possessing a dangerous slope to the rear, I was hard put to keep on the machine at all, leaving out an account of the pedals that were as elusive and as slippery as eels. On the whole, I was not sorry when we came into Pitton and were obliged to walk, the old postman peddling his letters from door to door, and I pushing the tricycle. Tricycle, it's funny to call it a tricycle. I suppose it's got 3 wheels, is it? But 2 seats somehow. Oops. Will you stop doing that? We were to part company at the crossroads at the top of the hill. The old man had preserved a mild winter coolness throughout the whole journey, but for me it had become a hot and dusty summer's day. I looked all ways in quest of an inn sign, but nothing of the kind was visible. "Now," I asked, "do the people manage here? So how," I asked, "do the people manage here if they happen to be thirsty?" The old man pointed to a very innocent-looking cottage. "Ye may try," he said, "but 'tis an off licence, and you'll never get a drop." I knocked at the door. Hard Heart, in the guise of a stout, comely old lady, opened to my summons, and was affably adamantine. Adamantine? I tried all inducements, but in vain. "You can't have it in your bare hands," she said, rather obviously. "Where be your jug?" Nah, I durst lend you nothing, it's too dangerous." Whereupon she closed the door in my face. I was coming back to the postman disconsolately, when a little boy turned the corner carrying a milk can. Milk was a poor substitute, truly, in Wiltshire, the very home of good ale, but the old tricycle had served me a sorry turn. I held up a bargaining 6pence in the little boy's face. To my surprise, however, his eyes filled with disappointment. "'Tis empty," he wailed, "and ain't farm be a mile away." The old postman chuckled. "'Tis no good," he said. You must bide die till you gets to Winterslow. He had yet to learn the resources of the needy. "Here's the 6pence," I said to the desperate youngster. "Now, can I have the can for 5 minutes? Postman, shall it be ale or beer?" Once clear of Pitton, I found that I had seen the last of the Wiltshire Downs. The country swiftly resumes its old luxuriant character, and autumn blazed up again on every side. Once more the rustle of dry leaves underfoot mocked the wind in the thicket. The whole way to Winterslow was submerged in leaves, and the sunny air full of their glancing colours. Between the villages I met not a soul, and saw no living thing but birds and rabbits. It was only 2 or 3 miles, but I spent a good 2 hours in covering the distance. I found that by walking on the soft turf under the hedgerows, I could get along quite silently without bestowing any care on the matter, and so came upon many a familiar but perennially interesting thing. I remember this lane chiefly for its abundance of scarlet berries and the amazing strife of the birds around me as I went. One would have thought that where there was such great plenty of food for all comers, each would take his fill in peace. But this was not so. The lane was like a battlefield. I moved in continual hubbub of aggression. Creeping along the shady side of a hedge, I was in a constant whirl of fluttering wings and vociferous music. Blackbirds charged, clattering out on every side, wild with excitement. Song thrushes darted hither and thither. A cloud of small birds, finches for the most part, swept on before me, rendering the air with various notes of combat or alarm, and above it, and through it all, the harsh, grating battle cry of the missel thrush pealed out. He, indeed, was the prime cause of all the disturbance. The missel thrush is the bully of the hedgerows. Being the largest and strongest and most pugnacious of the company, he naturally does not hold with the ancient principle of live and let live. He is free to take now all he wants from the laden hedges, and none can prevent him. But that's not enough for the greedy missel. His design, and that of his fellows, is to take forcibly possession of the common larder of the countryside, and to hold it against all weaker birds. This selfish policy succeeds while the weather remains warm, and other sources of... This selfish policy succeeds while the weather remains warm and other sources of food are available. But directly the cold, bright days of autumn set in, other birds must crowd to the buried hedgerows or run the risk of starvation. Through sheer weight of numbers and by dint of repeated quick raids from all directions at once, most of them contrive to snatch a meal from the bush under the very eyes of its raging custodian. But it is hard and hot and exciting work while it lasts, for none more than the missel thrush himself. Almost his whole day at this time of the year is spent in scolding at intruders or making headlong rushes after retreating foes. As the alarm spread at my approach, first the weaker combatants made off, and then the missel thrushes themselves. But their rasping notes did not cease even then. Each came storming out of the thicket on the farther side just ahead of me, and off to the shelter of the nearest tree until I had passed on. Or sometimes they winged straight up into the blue, and hovering there, lark high, until they were free to get back to their misbeholden treasures. He goes about the countryside on tiptoe, praying into holes and crannies, undoubtedly sees more of wildlife than one who is content with an ordinary stroll through the woods and lanes, trusting to the chance revelation of the moment. But to me, at least, the great charm of nature has always been not her most secret, most hidden aspects, but her unceasing repetition of old known sights and sounds. To steal about, straining eyes and ears for rare events, is often to destroy the very spirit of the morning. Throughout the rest of that idle saunter by the field and covert, the only things that really mattered to me were that the sun shone, the birds sang, the year was in full red flush of its down-going. We all live for the moment at such a time, bird and man and creeping thing. At all other seasons, much of our pleasure is derived from the thought that, good as things are, there are better to come. But now our joy pivots on forgetfulness of the bleak and barren tomorrow. I wandered on through the sun and shadow, from one leafy covert to another, taking my fill of music and light and warm shelter, as though each step were the last in plenty, and the next would bring me out on the desert of wintry winds and loveless gloom and cold. Pause there for a moment. I see you bashing away. Hopefully Richard's read... Oh, yes, I read that. Mary and Philip, good afternoon to you. Billabong O'Neill, nice to see you there. How big is a gnat's knicker leg anyway, says Julia. Yes, it's probably very small. Lee Lawson, depends on how fat a gnat's legs are. Yeah, that's very true, in actual fact. Charlie Cooper, hello to you. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be back on a live reading again. I never normally get to watch it live due to work, but I have a week off. Well, thank you for joining us on this week off. That's very kind of you. I was thinking that, says Ed. Probably about the size of the gnat's knicker leg, I assume. What an interesting debate you are having. Elinda Kane, just big enough for a gnat's leg, eh? Right. The Allotment Channel. You are currently broadcasting live to Epping Forest, sat on a log listening. How marvellous. How marvellous that you're also out and about. Julia and I were out and about on this grim day. The weather has been overcast and a little bit windy, not quite inclement, but close to it. I gather rain is coming in later, and I'm just looking up at there's a tiny, in the studio here where I'm recording from, which is really a back room. You can see here, there's the camera and the telly and all of the comments and what have you that I look at, and some lights. And there you can see a slit in my curtains, a slit, which reveals, actually it looked brighter on the webcam than in real life. It's getting dark, so it must be dark in Epping Forest. Philip and Julia says, Julia, you're very welcome. I am busy knitting Richard's jumpers, finishing one, working on the second one now. Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to have to find some more money and send you, because these are lovely. They are so lovely. Mary, you are amazing. Beautifully written and read. Thank you very much. Right, where are we? To spend, and does anyone know where Winterslow is? I've never heard of it. This is the place he's just turned himself up at, somewhere in Wiltshire. Shall we just go and have a quick look? I know it's another diversion in the book, but people seem to occasionally like the odd diversion. We don't do it all the time. Winterslow. I've never heard of it. Winterslow weather. No, I just want Winterslow, the actual place. Winterslow, Wikipedia. Let's have a little look at a number of things here. So, Winterslow is... Oh, okay, so it's west of Salisbury. Trying to think where he came from. Pitton or somewhere. There's Pitton that he's heading to. Pitton is there. Or he's gone to Pitton and he's heading to Winterslow, which is here. So let's have a look. Middle Winterslow, the Grimsteads Farley. If we go up here, I think we get to the church. Bit of a stretched out place by all. Yeah, it's a bit modern round there. Did I see the church? Is that to the church? No. That looks like an old forge, doesn't it, that one? The street. So this must be... So there's not much here. Not much in Winterslow. Interesting how it got its name. Where's the church? There's the church. Oh, there's the street. We were in the street. I just want to have a quick look at the church. Up this lane. Can we get any closer? No, we can't. Okay. Oh, there's the church. There we go. Nice little church. Interesting position of the tower. The tower and the porch. Notice that? The tower and the porch. Normally you get a tower at the west end. But here the tower is built into the porch with the nave and then the chancel along the back. That's very interesting as a church. Find that interesting. Winterslow is a parish, population 2,000, so tiny little place. Bronze Age, Iron Age hill fort, Roman road, Old Sarum, churches and chapels, All Saints Church, 12th century church, Methodist, blah, 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 blah. Notable people, William Hazlitt. There he is, William Hazlitt. He's a famous writer, essayist, drama, critic and painter. So, interesting. A place to go and visit then. I'm assuming at some juncture in one's life. There we are, a bit of the stats that come in with the show. Right. Absolutely love Richard's way of reading. He usually gets into character and evokes the imagination. Some days I'm better than others, you know. It's some days. I think if I was to, to record this professionally as a profession, it would take a lot longer because I'd have to read it. I'd have to read the chapter and do it several times because as I go along, I hear how it should be read, and I realise I didn't read it quite with the not inclination. What's the matter with me? Age. Can somebody do a senile test on me with the delivery I wanted to make? That's not the word I was looking for. The whatever it is. Anyway, right, here we go. To spend an hour in Winterslow and never once think of Hazlitt. Ha ha! It's a good job we looked that up, because now we can all be holier than thou and know that William Hazlitt came from there. So aren't we clever? Or the lambs. I don't know what's talking about the lambs. It must be the lamb family. The lamb family intonation. Thank you, Julia. See, Julia knows. She knows the words. Thank you so much, Julia. To spend an hour in Winterslow and never once think of Hazlitt or the lambs must seem a little short of a crime to the literary reader. Oh, it does. It does. How could you not possibly think that? But that is what happened to me, and will probably happen again if ever I retrace that day's tortuous route. The truth is that Winterslow puts the wayfarer under an immediate and all-suffering spell of its own. There is a present-day enchantment in the place that annihilates all thoughts of times foregone. Well, to be honest, I didn't really see anything of the town other than a straight road with a bunch of modern houses strung out, but maybe there is more. The living people there are so engrossingly attractive that it never occurs to you to ponder over the dead ones, famous or obscure. It is a vortex of rural peace and quiet, a dimple in the pool, just serving to mark the vital difference between progress and stagnation. I like that, a vortex of rural peace. We went to Sutton today, Julia and I, to film, and that was a vortex of peace and quiet, although there were a few cars trundling through. I came into the beautiful, I must remember, a vortex of peace and quiet. Write that down, Julia. We can use that. You can come out with that on. I'll say, what do you think of this place, Julia? And you can say, this is a vortex of peace and quiet, Richard. And I'll just look at you going, yes. And I, for once, will be wordless. I came into the beautiful old-world settlement of Winterslow well prepared, as the overture prepares one, for grand opera. In a field not far from the village, some sheep were folded, just like cow fold. And stopping to listen to the bells, I was immediately struck by the pureness of their tone. The ordinary sheep bell is a kind of inverted brazen can, but the bells of this fold were real bells, both in shape and quality. The bells on a farm usually belong to the shepherd and are handed down from father to son in the common calling. Some sets are of great age, as I judge these to be. But there was no shepherd to inquire of. The fold was in charge of a shaggy grey dog, who, though he looked as if he were full of information, failed to enlighten me, mainly because I could not understand his thunderous speech. When he said a thunderous grey dog, I actually thought he literally meant a dog, but he obviously means a person. However, I made out that he wanted me to come no nearer, so I contented myself with leaning over the gate and listening to the wayward melody of the fold. Silvery and slow in the noontide sun the sound crept over to me, and I thought that I had never heard a sweeter strain. Gong, 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 bong, bong, gong, bong, gong, bong, ding, ding, bong, bong, gong. That is the actual sound, pre-recorded and sent through time. The notes ran through a full octave, up and down, now in clanging peals of a score together, and now in single tones like bells moved at random by an inconstant breeze. And there was a sort of rhythm through it all, almost a meaning. There were sudden, clear harmonies and pell-mell discords following them. Once, and for a long time it seemed, all the bells stopped together, while one of the deepest tolled as regularly as if the sexton himself were at his rope. And then all the bells came swinging in together, the rich, quiet tones overreaching one another like flood-tide ripples on a sandy shore. I turned at last and went on into the village, but the soft pealing stayed in my ears. In fancy it returned to me all through the day, and again in fancy I heard it far off, as silvery and slow as ever, when I woke in the night, walled up in the queerest, cosiest nesting place that ever poor vagrant could chance upon, but of that in its place. My first impression of Winterslow was of a wide-spreading flower garden, dotted over with gigantic brown toadstools, and here and there a beehive, fancifully shaped like a house. But on a nearer view, the toy houses became veritable human dwellings, and the toadstools real cottages hiding under their thatch. Yet my early conception of the place as a garden remained to the end. In the hour that I spent there, I saw more and finer flowers than I looked upon at any other spot in the 5 counties. Every cottage stood in its patch of rich-hued autumn blossom. The sprawling scarlet of the Virginia creeper decked the walls. Ruddy apples shone aloft in the trees. The favourite pampas grass lit many a nook with its cool silver. Roses met my eye at every turn in make-believe June. Before I had been there 5 minutes, I set Winterslow down as the place where it never snowed, nor gloomed, nor blew cold. I gave it eternal sunshine unquestionably, just as surely as I know that the sky above is always of the same cloudless blue. I've got to have a look. We tried to look, but we failed, did we not? It didn't look anything terribly interesting, so let's come out and have another look. Where is Winterslow? Is more here. The street, the plantation. Let's have a look by satellite. We go by... This can't... This is the Baptist church. But it's... Oh, hang on, sorry, you can't see. I beg your pardon. I'm on the satellite. Winterslow Coachworks, the street. Am I missing something? Gospel light. What about this then? Middle Winterslow. Winterslow. Oh, hang on. Here we go. All that looks very modern. That looks modern. Lord Nelson, maybe. You can see when something's modern. I mean, look at that. All of that, something close, this close, and all of that. You can see that's modern just by the patterns of the roads. Clearly, that's not of its own. This all looks, again, it looks modern. Takeaway here, but maybe this old inn is worth looking at. That looks nice. Slate roof, again, slate roof. You know, genuine slate roof. Georgian-looking windows. What would you say that is? 1930s. Pebble-dashed cottage. But this does not look old at all, apart from the occasional one. All of that's modern and a horrible, hideous-looking place. No disrespect. So, All Saints Church, that's the oldest part, and here's the street. See, look, that looks like an old place, if you could get to see it, but I don't suppose you can from the street. Not there. Here. Oh, yeah, here's the gate. Can we see in there? Oh, bloody what's-name view. Can't get to see down the... sense of an outbuilding there. And look, you can just make out. That looks a bit modern, doesn't it? Modern windows. That does look modern. That looks modern. I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting your time. That's an older house because, look, it's built on the corner there. Probably a pub at one time. Back drove, church. Can you go up there? I don't quite know what he was talking about then. Nice house. Cool. Anyway, enough of that frivolity. Right, okay, so the same. The sprawl. I read all that, blah, blah, blah. That was a busy hour. When I was tired of looking over garden gates at the lavish treasure beyond, I had the smithy to inquire into. I wonder where the smithy is. To note the changing clang of the iron as it cooled under the hammer, and learn the true voice of temper. Watch the sparks flying out of the shadow through the slant of sunshine into the shadow again. Hearken to the wheezy bellows, the growl of the fire, the competition of uxorious sparrows on the roof. Uxorious? Is it uxorious? Is that a word? Uxorious? It's an interesting word. Uxorious. Uxorious. Lovely to say. Then there was the little red house, half private dwelling, half workshop. Well, where the hell is that? The shop was carpeted in shavings, full of green light from ivy-cumbered window panes, and pervaded by a serious old man who quietly hammered at a bench. He was not in the least perturbed when I came and silently looked upon him like a village urchin. I said after a while, by way of a greeting, that it was good work, this, the contriving and fashioning in wood, and he replied that it was indeed so, provided that the man could get enough of it whereby to live. Then we went partnership in a full 5 minutes of congenial silence, broken only by the tap of his hammer as he fed it with slender, shining brass brads. It was a workbox of some for a woman's trifle that he was engaged upon. I watched it grow together under his deft fingers, helping him with mute condemnation until he had got it into the final shape. And then he conveyed to me that he was glad of my assistance by reaching down a rose from a glass on a window-sill. I never like to have them out of my mind, he said, polishing busily. I don't know what he means by that. I looked at the cottage doors with discreet and private eye in passing, and browsed a while on the labels in the window of the village shop. There were few men about, these being at their labour in the fields, but the women abounded, all the older ones wearing the print sun-bonnet, last vestige of the national peasant costume. I've often wondered at the strange coincidence, yet it is nevertheless a fact, that I never come into a village, but I hit upon the one precious half-hour of the day when the women lay by work for a chat at the cottage door, or flying interchange of news across the street. So again it happened in Winterslow. What does he mean by that? I have often wondered at the strange coincidence, yet it is nevertheless a fact, that I never come into a village, but I hit upon the one precious half-hour of the day when the women lay by work for a chat. Oh, it's just the turn of phrase in this old-fashioned way, this enchanting old-fashioned way of his. So in other words, every time he goes into the village, he notices nobody's working. They're all having a good old gossip across the kitchen against the garden hedge. There they were, all merrily at it as I sauntered through, leaning out of the window or door, or gathered in little companies by garden gates. And while I stood listening to the murmur of voices, soft or shrill, the school door burst open like a dam, and a rush of pinafores, pink and white and blue, all but swept me off my feet. I turned eastward from Winterslow at last, with my rose nodding from my buttonhole, and my ears a melody of music, bells and hammer, the chipping of sparrows, the chirping even of sparrows, and children, the sugared indolence of Wiltshire country speech. That noon I lunched by the wayside on apples and plum heavies. Plum heavies? The hell is a plum heavy? A heroic meal, with a robin perched on my boot toe, whence he descended at intervals to recover errant crumbs, so that you could keep still or make but the most deliberate movement. The robin, whose private hedgerow quarters you may be sharing, will always wait upon you thus. The legend of ill luck to the molester of the robin or his nest is all but universal in the country. He bears a charmed life, and well he knows it. He allows no liberties, but permits himself many. And a favourite perch of his is an outstretched human foot, especially when the east wind chills the ground. So there we sat, my little scarlet waistcoated valet and I, for a full half hour, until it became necessary to consult the map, when, at the unavoidable rustle and flourish of the sheet of paper, he flew off, scared and offended, and I saw him no more. I made the astonishing discovery, as before it had happened to me, that I was nearly out of the country, though believing myself still in the heart of it. In a mile or two at most, I was to leave Wiltshire behind and strike into Hampshire. And, for the moment, this came as much as a grievance than as a surprise. Round about Winterslow you will find no fairer country in all southern England. There is nothing wild about it, and little that is imposing, unless these qualities are taken piecemeal in the magnificence of its trees, but it will charm the eye and comfort the mind at every turn. There is a visible correspondence, a sure fellowship between humanity and nature there. For once the two seemed to labour together for the common good, and the sun to shine on something like the old Edenic unity. But I was to feel that more and more as the afternoon drew on in its closing. But I was to feel that more and more as the afternoon drew on to its golden closing, and feel it in a remarkable way. Plum suet pudding, I think. Oh, plum heavy. Oh, yes, I suppose it would be heavy because of the suet. Oh, very good. That was the end of chapter 15. We're on chapter 16. We will persevere because Lee Lawson's got a recipe here. Lard, flour, sugar, currants, rolled out into rounds and baked. Sounds lovely. I'll be round immediately. Immediately I finish. Have you baked one? Is it nice? Is it ready? Chapter 16 contains the led horse, I undertake a delicate mission, necromancy at Titherley, the missionary van, a moonlight lift, and King's Somborn. So let's crack on whilst we've got a few more minutes. The road now plunged into woods. The lower branches everywhere were nearly bare of leaves, but the treetops, being younger and more supple, still held their full canopy aloft, and through this natural roof the sunbeams filtered in glancing red and russet, gold and grey. The tree trunks were all of vivid green, the grass beneath them greener still. Far overhead the wind sang shrilly, but below hardly a leaf stirred. Into this quiet labyrinth of hollow ways I was followed presently by a clatter of hoofs. 3 or 4 riders, some soldiers and a groom with a lead horse overtook and swept by me, soon disappearing in the dusky depths of the wood ahead. A little later, however, I came upon the groom again, and this time alone. His 2 horses were grazing by the roadside, while the groom himself sat on a gate, busily scribbling upon his knee. As I approached, I saw him put up his pencil and read over what he had written, and then impatiently tear the paper into scraps. He was letting the pieces slowly dribble through his fingers to the ground, little out, himself evidently lost in thought, when my foot struck against a stone. Looking quickly round, he caught the sight of me. It was a remarkable face he turned to mine, all the more remarkable for the status of the man, or rather the lithe youngster who bore it. He could not have been more than 18 or 20 years old. He wore a suit of drab Bedford cords, buttoned in at the knee, and in all other respects looked the groom and nothing more. But the face was grave, refined and clever, a face of the born cleric, clear-cut, delicately moulded, with a pair of fearless grey eyes and a mouth faultlessly strong over a firm chin. I think he was describing me then. I could picture its owner as anything from deacon now to future archbishop. And here he was, exercising horses at perhaps 15 shillings a week, with, at the utmost, the prospect of being head coachman some day and a rich man's poor pensioner afterwards. I pulled up as I came abreast of him with a casual question about the road, and, I may as well confess at once, certain nebulous designs stirring within me at the sight of the two horses with only one rider. But I had soon forgotten my own particular concerns in the new interest that his first words awakened. Not only his voice, which was powerful and resonant, but his accent and whole manner were apiece with his face. He spoke like the man of culture, and with such unconscious ease and want that I found myself staring again and again at his groom's clothing with a greater wonder than ever. Yet there was something more about him which still further interested me. I found him very ready to talk. For a long time we chatted together, but the longer I stayed with him, the more convinced I became that he was in some deep trouble or other. It came out not in his words, but in look, pause, gesture, the 100 little ways that are alike nameless. In 100 little ways that are alike, nameless and indescribable, yet not to be mistaken. I looked at the torn paper on the road. I thought of the boy's age and qualities of feature. There was only one conclusion to be drawn as to the nature of his trouble, and later, so it was, all revealed to me. He was, it seemed, in that condition of mind familiar at some time to all of us, when a confidence must be made, if only to a brick wall or a stranger. I moved to go, whereupon I saw a sudden aversion to being left alone with his misery light up in his eyes, and following it, just as swift, a signal of resolution. He jumped down to his horses. "If you're going to Tytherley," he hesitated, "and won't mind riding on cloth, why, I'm going through there, and Myrtle can be all the better for someone to carry." So the thing was going to happen as I hoped it would. He gave me a leg up, and I think I settled into place on Myrtle's thoroughbred, but providently So the thing was going to happen as I hoped it would. He gave me a leg up, and I think I settled into place on Myrtle's thoroughbred, but providently elderly back without disclosing my novitative. In other words, being a novice, I assume. In one so absolutely ignorant of horsemanship, the act was mere foolhardiness. But fortune was hoodwinked. She evidently mistook it for bravery and showed favour on me in the form of an exceedingly brilliant idea. "We are neither of us in a hurry," said I. "Suppose we turn into the woods and go by the bridle paths, if there are any. We need not move above walking pace." That afternoon's ride all comes back to me now as though I were reading about it in the yellow, dog-eared pages of some early Victorian novel, instead of trying to write it out fresh, wet ink from a 20th century fountain pen. The solemn deep light of the wood, the green moss luminous under the hooves of our pacing chargers, the screaming jays, the gambling rabbits, the pigeons cluttering noisily away through the red forest roof. Here and there a beam of sunshine full of midges, or a pheasant running and calling in the secret brightness of some far-off glade, or the sound of a stoat hunting, or a rustle of the birds in the whin. But above all, I remember the boy's rapt, sorrowful face, the dumb spell that held him for half the ride, and then his broken beginning. I wanted to ask. I was thinking whether you would mind if I asked your advice about something. He stopped and cut at the green bramble spray with his whip. I could not yet see how to help him. It's about a young a girl, he continued desperately. Do you think they always mean what they say? This was a vastly more difficult problem than I had expected. I played for time, for consideration. Well, of course, it depends on two things: what is said and who it is that says it. Then, but she is a girl of good education, made of good stuff through and through. There is no one like her. No, not one, he cried proudly, a bright spot glowing in the tan of his cheek. I thought it over a little, watching him all the while. Suppose you tell me what she said then. I can hardly advise you without knowing. It's all about position, social position, you know. Her father is a postmaster at Littlecott near Winchester, and I am only a common stableman. She says if I will give up and go into something better, she will think about what I asked her. Light seemed to dawn on the matter here. Well, I answered him, that seems very reasonable. If you can only do it, have you any plans? Is there no one you know who can help you get into something a little... I know what you mean. He caught me up. A little more respectable. But my father is a coachman, and I would not hurt him for any woman. Besides, it isn't anything to do with Clara. She has her ideas, or at least I think. But what is it that's... But that is what is so worrying. The truth is, I believe I have a chance with her, but only in one way. And that, said I, as he hesitated. Go for a soldier. He turned his face away, still averting his eyes, and went on confusedly. There's Dick Transome, in the Rifles. He's always over there, you know. And just because of the uniform and Dick's flash and dash, it's my only chance, I know well. I shall be in the Guards, it'll be the Guards or Dragoons for me, something with plenty of scarlet and brass in it. That will put out the gravel crushers green as you can snuff a candle. Yes, there's only one thing, and the sooner the better. The path was narrow here, and we were going in single file, my steady old mount in the rear. I could not see his face just then, nor, luckily, could he see mine. I had not been so upset for many a day. Here was the youth to whom, in fancy, I'd given all sorts of high destinies, if only fate and fair play could pull together. A boy with the face of St. John and the eyes of Shadrach. Here he was, as it were, sailing paper boats in a puddle and mistaking it all for a real adventure of the great waters of life. I was seized, of course, with an intense loathing and contempt for Clara, yet I could not hope that she was a fool as well. If she could have my budding archangel, if she could have my budding archangel, have him she would, I knew, and yet he might be wholly in the wrong about her nature. The very fact that he was attracted by her augured, I don't know what that word is, on second thoughts to her credit. That was embarrassing. I knew... It's embarrassing when you don't know a word and you're in full flow, and this is all going quite jolly. I knew that the first need of a good man doing good work was the possession of the right woman as a standard bearer. But what manner of a thing was Clara at heart? Yes, all depended on the woman. I must see her. I must go to Little Cot and judge for myself. We came out of the little clearing, a sort of deep well in the wood, a disk of blue sky overhead fringed about with the ragged gold of the elm tops, and below the red bracken up to our horses' knees. I put forth a hand and stopped the boy. Now look here. You were in earnest, were you not, when you asked my counsel on this matter? Yet you seem to have made up your mind before I had the chance to say a word. You're going much too fast. I am a good deal older than you, and the older a man gets, the more he realises the importance of this business of falling in love. In more senses than one, it is a matter of life and death. For this reason alone, it is impossible for me to advise you until I have thought the whole thing out carefully, and that needs time. Now, will you really trust me as a friend? And if you are willing for that, you will promise me that you will do nothing and write to no one until you have had a letter from me. Remember that on what comes to pass within the next few weeks or days perhaps may depend not only on your own happiness and success in life, but Clara's as well. Keep that in mind and wait as patiently as you can until you have read and considered what I will write to you, for I may be able to help you more than you think. Sitting alone in the inn at Titherley, a little later, or Titherley, over a quiet cup of tea, I was able to enjoy a new sensation in my travels, that of having something to do awaiting me on ahead. I found from the map that Little Cot lay about 5 miles southwest of Winchester, not greatly out of my way. By pushing on tonight as far as I could conveniently get, I might easily reach Little Cot in the afternoon of the next day, but that would be Saturday, and I had long promised myself a rest on Sunday. How would it do, I pondered, to break my rule for once, as to a village route, and to spend Sunday in the old cathedral town? So I arranged it, therefore, and having got that off my mind, I strolled out to take a look at the village. I'm going to leave it there. We have a couple of pages to the end of the chapter, but let's see what he's going to do. Sorry about some of the duff reading there. That's certainly a case where it would be nice to have pre-read the chapter and got the nature of what's coming up. But this is not how it's done. On the live, we just do it as it comes. Oh, I give up typing on this stupid phone. I don't blame you. I can't bear typing on phones. I'd much rather dictate. Linda Kane says, once that was rolled out, they cut the pastry into small child-sized bites. Oh, okay. Oh, that's the plum heavies. These were, says Linda Kane, cheap kids' cookies of their day. Victorian country cooks would knead a handful of diced plums into a little extra sugar into scraps of leftover pastry. What a good idea. Bet they were very nice. I like the sound of plum heavies, says TurboStream. There we are. Anyway, so he's suddenly become an agony aunt on his journey through the southern roads. Is our little hapless hero who's going from pillage to post. We are now a quarter to go. So where are we today? We're Wednesday, aren't we? I reckon we won't finish this by Friday, but we might finish it on Monday. So there we go. But yeah, sorry about sometimes the reading is it is embarrassing. There was a word there. Maybe you can just quickly help me with this word. It's A-U-G-U-R-E-D. Augurd? Is it? Some words I just have no idea how you even approach pronouncing. It's not like, it's like angered, but it's not angered. A-U-G-U-R-E-D. The meaning is past tense of Augur, is it?
Augur.
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 Augured. Portend or abode to a specific outcome. Foresee or predict. It's an old-fashioned, archaic word, it says. That's why it's not in my vocabulary. The very fact that he was attracted by her augured. On second thoughts, to her credit. Don't understand that sentence. Not going to worry about it. But there we go. Really enjoyable. Thank you very much. Oh, brilliant. I'm glad you enjoyed it anyway. Mostly it's all right, isn't it? Mostly we're doing okay. Great. I will see you, if you're watching the Vobes Show, later. Otherwise, I shall see you tomorrow for some more of that. Julia and I managed to get out and do a video, which is now up, but it will be released tomorrow. So that's tomorrow's video done and dusted. Whew. So I can go and light the Essie. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye for now. Bye-bye.